Howdy tankers. Today we have some battles with the T29, the Tier 7 American heavy tank. This is a tank with incredibly good frontal turret armor, a solid gun, excellent gun depression, decent mobility, a weak hull, so it requires a very much of a hull down play style. If you are coming to this tank, the first thing to realize is that you really need to come to it from the M6, not the M4A3E2. Why? Because with the M6 you can grind the 90mm gun. Otherwise you are stuck starting with the 76mm pop pea shooter, which is ridiculous. If you play the tank with this gun, people will laugh at you with good reason. So here I am playing solo. I have the 120mm gun on this tank, which is a little bit slow aiming. They nerfed it a couple of versions ago because the T29 was such an amazingly powerful tank. It's still good, but it's definitely more sluggish. They nerfed the aim time with this M6, and he gets focus fired to death. I'm attempting to expose only my hull, which the enemy's not going to be able to penetrate. But I do take a couple of shots here. And what I'm doing here is side scraping. That's the other thing you want to do with this tank. If you're not able to protect the frontal hull, expose your tracks at an angle, and you can see as how I've taken track damage, but I've managed to avoid taking shots to my hull, and I've preserved my hit points pretty effectively while I've been able to keep firing at this tank. And so the enemy's capping, not too worried about that at this point. Don't manage to get that shot in here. And here's an IS. Big strong gun. I don't want to get hit in the hull here. So I popped one in and pulled back behind this building to reload. And I put another one into him. And I decide that I am going to charge in close, where that giant gun is going to have real trouble penetrating my turret, and I can penetrate his turret. As you can see, up close I'm getting shots in, and I'm sticking to him. He is moving his turret back and forth, trying to find a shot, trying to get down into my hull. As long as I'm close enough, I can keep firing into his turret. And unfortunately, the angle of the ground gave him just enough of an angle to shoot into my hull one time, but now he's dead. And that's the game. That went well, 2400 damage, no kills, but overall pretty solid game. Now I'm platooning with F-Warrant, and we are going up into the hills here. This tank is heavy, but it is a natural hill fighter tank, and I want to use the excellent gun depression and excellent turret armor to go hull down and kill enemies without making myself vulnerable. Get a lucky shot here on a low health T34, and I want to use the curve of this hill to make myself as invulnerable as possible while still getting shots over the top lip of that hill. See, I'm bouncing shots. This tank, gun 120, once you get the tank upgraded to include that gun, has very good penetration for the tier, decent gun handling, slow aim time at 2.7 seconds. Not the most accurate gun at 0.42 dispersion. But very workable. So I've decided to advance. There are tanks coming in behind us, We advanced to finish off the final tank on this flank, and now we have a big push from behind us. They flanked through the city. Now, this is a great hull down spot for tanks normally when I'm coming from the other side, but I'm going to use that here, take a little bit of damage, pull down to reload, come up here, fail to penetrate this KV-1S, and as you will see at the very end, that bounce shot loses this game. Try a blind shot into that bush, may or may not have hit. Penetrate that time. Now this T29 AT is coming up and rushing us. Not sure why he's doing that. I back up to give them as few targets as possible. Kill him. Back up further. Have a shot ready. Kill him. Got an E2 coming up. Hit him. Gonna need to turn toward him to try to make it so that he cannot fire into my hull. Kill him. That's 6. But unfortunately, this KV-1S that I would have liked to have penetrated earlier manages to get me. So, don't usually see that many medals on a loss. Almost 3,000 damage, 6 kills, but didn't manage to fully carry that out. Here I am platooning with Warlord on Port Bay. We try to get everybody to go to the hills on the left, but they insist on going into port. It's a tier 8 game, so there are a number of higher tier tanks, and we decide to not go off by ourselves, but instead see what we can do going to port. I'm trying to use this vehicle in front of me as a to protect my hull. Got shots in. Pull back to let other tanks fire. Get another shot in. Trying to provide as much coverage for this side of things as can. Put another shot into an IS-6, very difficult tank to penetrate. And you'll notice I've switched to APCR for that purpose. This is going to be kind of a desperate battle, and it's going to be another heartbreaker. Put a shot into this T28 prototype. And we have a Tankenstein here, which I can put a shot into the side of his turret and kill him. And Super Pershing, very tough turret with spaced armor there. Hard for a tier 7 to penetrate, but he exposes himself a bit, and I managed to get into the top of his turret and get a penetration. But it's not looking good here. At this point, I'm just trying to do as much damage as I can before I die, not expecting to last very long. Cursing my team, who really should have gone into hills. That would have been a much better place for this fight to happen, but that's what we got to work with. For some reason, they are not advancing quickly, and I managed to eat a shot with my tracks. Got an SU over there and a T28 prototype. I put a shot into his side. Trying to sidescrape here. Eat another shot with my tracks. Don't penetrate the prototype. He's got very strong frontal armor. Bouncing shots with my tracks. Managed to kill the prototype by putting an APCR round into his turret cheek. Now we've got this guy coming up to the side. Put a shot into him. I want to make myself as minimally vulnerable to other tanks as possible, and I do not want to take a shot from this SU. Put another shot into him. Take a shot from behind. I'm kind of stuck here. Put another shot into the SU, not quite enough to kill him, but that's it. So, considering that this was a Tier 7 tank in a Tier 8 game, I did top damage. Rather embarrassing performance for the Tier 8 tanks on my team. Alright, here's a better one. I'm platooning with Czech Congo. We are heading up to Temple, and I am going to just go straight up to the top here. I'm not going to the very top because these tiers of the temple make a very good hiding spot for my hull, which is what I'm trying to do. We've got KV-1S. We've managed to put a shot in through the front of his turret, and then we're pulling back to reload. He is trying to use the edges of this building as a good hiding spot, but despite the relatively poor accuracy of my tank, I managed to get a sneaky shot into his cupola. Aiming in to try to do that. He's being careful. Managed to do that again. He's a one-shot. And we have a tank YOLOing forward. I don't get any shots into him, but he's dead. Slowly work my way forward. There's that KV-1S. Take him out. I'm sure that was frustrating for him. He was doing a pretty good job of hiding back there, but exposing just enough. Now here's an enemy T29. You notice I couldn't get through his turret. I somehow managed to bounce off the front of this T25 AT. I'm not sure quite how that happened. Aim slowly in on this T29, switch to APCR to try to get that round through. He was exposing just enough of the side of his turret for me to be able to do that. Switch back to AP. I can put one into his hull. And it looks like we have flanker coming in, so I decide to turn and try to deal with that. It's not a super fast tank by any means, but it's reasonably mobile for a heavy. Got a Panther there. Fire right into his lower plate, even at an angle. No problem getting through that lower plate. Wouldn't have done so well on the upper plate. And he's the last enemy tank left, and take him out. This was just a solid game with a solid team, but kind of shows what the tank can do in terms of defense. Hope you liked the video. Please like, please subscribe.